This is the construction we use for filming our media film.
We had to use multiple filming technologies because obviously it was a bit difficult to just use one, so we had to use more than one device and stuff.
Our phones were really important for filming, especially on the day. There's three of us had an iPhone, which really helped.
Yeah, so coincidentally we were quite lucky, because all having the same iPhone meant that they all function the same. The properties of all the videos were more or less pretty much the same, meaning it was easier to...
And they were the same quality as well, so it looked more professional.
Yeah, it enabled us to share everything between us, all the
using
filming,
iCloud.
using iCloud and everything, all the modern things on the iPhone supplied. We could easily share everything, so editing was a lot easier.
Is it worth mentioning communication? Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. Well, again, using the phones, we were able to communicate. So we use things like WhatsApp and just general text messages. I mean, it was easier.
We had to send all of the data over it as well, and then if we wanted to film, when we was actually filming, we'd just text each other to plan a day. And because obviously if Charlie didn't have an iPhone, we still had to contact him in some sort of way, so use a WhatsApp message as well.
WhatsApp was probably, we set that up right from day one, didn't we?
Yeah, that
was a group chat, which means all of us,
quite
no matter if we
important
had an
as well.
iPhone or didn't, could just easily all talk to one another.
Can be useful on many occasions, I'd say.
Yeah, especially if someone had a difficulty with a day or like editing or something like that, then...
Yeah, also with a phone, when we use a selfie stick at times, which became really useful for stability shots.
Especially when we couldn't balance it on certain things, because obviously when we were filming the news report we had a problem with Ryan's phone, but still we had to overcome that, so we borrowed a selfie stick.
Yeah, the problem of Ryan's phone smashing.
We kind of had to balance it on stuff, so we balanced it on tables.
And we had a scissor pop where we could just place it in.
We built up a tower of random objects at first, which then led to us creating a bit of a problem by damaging Ryan's phone. So that was something we had to overcome, and we dealt with by, again, using things like the selfie stick and more secure stands. So.
We had to use my MacBook because it's easier, because if it's an Apple device you can use the iCloud to put all of the data on it, and it was just like an extra way of saying that we wouldn't lose the data, because if we lost all of our footage then we would be quite screwed. So we had to make sure it was like safe and backed up.
We used our iPad and our actual thriller to transport the news report onto the telly. We had to get a special cable for this, and to do right timing for it as well, which was quite difficult.
Yeah, we had to connect it to the TV, because if it wasn't on the TV properly, if it was just shown on an iPad screen, it wouldn't have looked as professional.
Yeah, also we used an iPad originally to do some of the recording. However, we did then eventually find out it was slightly different quality to the phones. But we had to go back and re-record anyway, so we decided to stick with phones. But at first, the iPad was quite useful. Also, we didn't have computers. They were really useful in transporting the media around. Like we said, we transported through phone, but putting it onto the computer...
You can never have enough backups.
Yeah, putting it on the computer allows us to have backups, and also transporting to memory sticks, which have a larger capacity than phones, so we could hold it all in one place at one time and move it around.
Also, for our blogging, obviously, we used the computers to access really everything that we needed to do.
Yeah, especially when we were filming as well, we could use the iPad just to look on Blogger to see what we planned.
We could use it just as whenever we needed it. It's quite easy just to pick up and use just for whatever we needed to remind ourselves.
This is the editing stuff we used to edit our thriller.
Yeah, post-production, obviously. Editing is what makes a thriller, so we use a variety of things.
To make sure it's like the best it could be, and we had to use different
Okay,
softwares.
so Sony Vegas, first of all, that is the editing software we're using originally. I already own Sony Vegas and have a bit of experience in it, which made it useful, especially as it is a bit more high-end than just cutting clips together. So Charlie accompanied me with this. We sat down, we went through it a bit, I taught him the basics, and then you took over actually and did a lot of the cropping and piecing together.
Yeah, it was quite a hard, long process, but it eventually came together, and it went really well until we came into that jump where the editing didn't actually go too well.
Sony Vegas worked very well for us with the news report, which you'll see in the thriller and is uploaded as a separate video onto the blogs. It worked quite well in doing the overlays and the moving text, but in the final thriller we had a bit of an issue with some video files and some crop files, making them not compatible. So we moved on to the next editing software, Adobe Premiere Pro, which, although I'd heard of, I didn't even have much practice of, so it's actually quite fun learning how to use that, as well as Charlie learning with me at the same time.
It was good.
So yeah, bit of trial and error, but it was good. Personally, I don't know you, but personally I found it was actually a bit easier, a lot smoother, much easier to use.
There was more bits to put on, so you could put on more than one music track, and then they could add in the other stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It was quite nice. So especially with the final thriller, that's what we used. Yeah. And then After Effects, another Adobe program, which we only used briefly, but we used it to go over and do some colour correction on the final thrillers and actually some of the individual videos towards the end of the editing process. Some we didn't use, some we did, but it was sort of trial and error and down to preference really with colour correction. It was sort of up to the mood we wanted to set, so that was sort of finishing touches there. Photoshop, Photoshop we used a lot really.
Posters and
Yeah, I mean I used it when creating some assets for the news reports, for like the blue bar and some of the light flares and stuff. I used Photoshop. We used Photoshop in some of the earlier posters, I think. The teaser poster did some colouring and black and white effects and stuff on like the police line of some teaser poster originally. So Photoshop was quite useful.
We also used PicMonkey.com because it was kind of, sometimes Photoshop was being a bit iffy and we weren't able to access it from school or at home because obviously Photoshop's quite expensive. So I used PicMonkey to do a couple of the posters, as it kind of let you load more than one poster, like more than one picture on top of the other, so we could use the title fonts that were supposed to be seen on posters and all of the post-release posters and all of the star things.
I used iMovie for a number of times actually, but I used it for the trailer to patch everything together. And iMovie already had a set template to which helped out really because we'd spent a lot of time on our thriller and the blogging. So iMovie allowed a simple but effective way to create the trailer.
Yeah, we also used it for a lot in planning. Like we used it so that we could put all of the interviews together and all of the focus group because we kind of needed to add audio files over the pictures and it enabled us to do that.
Yeah, I think also on the original filming we used it, didn't we, to
Yeah,
very
just to
roughly
see.
but put the clips together to see how well it was flowing and stuff.
I also used it for all the focus groups and all the interviews that we did.
Yeah, it's quite simplistic, quick, easy to access.
Yeah, just for putting basic things together.
this is about what we learn. We learn obviously new skills and new ideas about media, so we can take it forward in life.
Throughout the project,
Throughout the project, like blogging and everything else.
Yeah, especially if we want to do it like in the media industry when we're older on, like we need to know how to edit and how to be able to make these posters look professional and what to expect. And we also learnt a lot about the deadlines and how quickly we have to use a certain technology to get it done.
Yeah, I mean, we learned everything from, editing software skills right down to the basics of just recording what we've done, making backup, simple sort of things that in the long run really
Like common sense that we didn't have to start with, but we now know.
Well, I think that even like the basic things that we learned were like even holding the phone up the right way so the camera shots didn't look different is just a thing that we never considered before. And I think especially if we carry this on for next year or any other project that we need to do in the future.
Yeah, and we didn't realise that they were all different like resolutions. Like we thought that all of the devices would come out the same.
iPads and the iPhones, so we had to.
But now we know you have to have the
stick to
same specific model if you want to record on more than one device.
And even to use things like iMovie properly was a bit of
Yeah.
an issue at the start. Which
We had to get advice, didn't we, from
Yeah.
year 13s and stuff.
Yes, as well as when me and Charlie moved from Sony Vegas onto Premiere Pro,
Yes,
we
I
had to learn the basics.
Yeah, so we've learnt quite a lot, really.